Hey guys, thank you for joining me. As always, this is the Second Helpings recap, post show, all the things. I do this every time. I'm never going to determine what this show is, but it is regarding the latest episode of Too Complicated for History, where we had Stephen Walters. Stephen Walters was there to talk about 1865, a podcast that he produced. Fantastic audio drama. I loved it. But more importantly, he was there to talk about Edwin Stanton, which I thought that this episode was a really great example of our Too Complicated for History like approach to things, which is we all know the story. Do we? Right? So hold on. It's history. It's John Wilkes Booth. It's the assassination of Lincoln. It's all the things we think we know, but there's so many more branches to the tree of the story. And Edwin Stanton is a huge part of that. I think it's awesome. I also love not just the word conspiratorial. I love that word for some reason, but the idea of conspiracy theory. It's a very what feels modern, but it is so cool to know that this is buried throughout history, that there are conspiracies. Nothing can just happen. The facts are never just the facts. We all always have independent opinions, and that's what we're here to discuss, our independent opinions. I am handing it off to Lynn. Tell me things.
Well,
I'm excited.
All, Edwin Stanton was the Secretary of War under Lincoln. So that sort of helps to explain who he was, because most people don't know his name. And let's see. What I thought was like super interesting about the episode is that we really didn't talk about the Civil War, but we talked about the war that took place after the Civil War, which Edwin Stanton had a big part in. So you have the battlefield war, and the Union comes out on top. Okay, we've saved the Union, but now what? And Edwin Stanton's view was, all right, now those, the South has to pay. So we're gonna make them suffer. We're gonna make them sign loyalty oaths. They're gonna pay for what they did. And the Unionists, a lot of people, others just wanted to say, all right, it's over. Let's just get back to normal. Let's just go ahead, bring them back in. Let's get back to normal. And so, of course, the question is, what would Lincoln have done? And nobody really knows. But Stanton wanted the South to pay for seceding and essentially causing a 4-year war. And as we may or may not know, essentially the outcome of the political war is that the South really ended up winning that one. They didn't win the battlefield, but I think he said within 10 years, Southerners were back in the United States government. So it's this,
really fast,
so it's this battle over what happens to the Confederacy. Did we fight for Union? Did we fight for the country to just come back together? Or did we truly fight to end slavery and to create a new nation with a new form of equality? And I think basically Stephen Walters says we still haven't really succeeded at that. So we're still in that fight.
We're still asking each other, WWLD, what would Lincoln do?
Absolutely.
I also had that exact same line right in the pocket that I was going to draw and shoot from the hip, but I'm glad it got out because I forgot as Lynn continued her description of stuff because I didn't want to interrupt. This episode was awesome. It's always great to talk to other podcasters, and it's especially those who present history. And this is dramatic historical fiction, so it is based in reality, but they did take creative liberties. We don't know what all the conversations were, but man, it's such a compelling show. So you all will definitely really go check it out. 1865. It's awesome. I know Jordan burned through it in like 2 days. It was like you had it like on like 3x and you're like, oh, I can't have enough. Like
it's an audio drama.
It's so good.
It's like the TV's on in the other room and you're listening to it, and you're like, you can see it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And Edwin Stanton is such a great character in the drama. And so then to have Stephen on to kind of tell us about like the history and the perspective, and it is such a, like you said, Jordan, a really interesting thing that most of us don't really know. Like, Edwin Stanton abuses power. He does things in theory with the right intention, but really people get hurt. And also, at the end of the day, he tries to play a political game and loses, right? The Game of Thrones. No, it's not quite that. It's such an interesting thing. And the other thing about it, because you also brought up conspiratorial or conspiracy, is it was kind of a conspiracy on both sides, right? Because you have the Booth assassination, which was a much larger conspiracy that potentially was, other people died, other people were targets. And Isaac even asked the question, like, wouldn't Jackson have been a good person for them to have kept alive? Right. So, ironically, he doesn't die, at least for our sake, or fortunately for the South, the Confederacy, he doesn't die. And then there's the conspiracy of Stanton trying to find, Booth's killer, trying to pin it on the Confederacy, and him going down the rabbit hole, and lying about things, and, bullying his way. Man, it's so good. Especially when you listen to the dramatization.
It really is.
Yeah, it really helps, like I said, paint a picture, a larger picture. And when I think about all the episodes that we've done, because we're working our way through this season, it makes me realize
3 episodes left.
How many?
3 left.
Wow.
This was episode 22. So this is the 22nd time we're doing this. God, I'm tired of seeing your face.
Incredible.
When is this over?
I could turn my camera off. But I can't erase it from your mind, buddy. No, it's what I was going to say is it's fascinating that are you going to do it again? No, okay. It's fascinating. Are you going to do it again?
I was tempted. After you brought it up.
I can never look at history the same because there is never anything that I can view as black and white anymore. Because Steve, I could hear us all wanting to say, "Oh, that's the show title," when Steven literally said, "It's complicated," right? And in almost every episode, I feel like that moment comes up organically, and that's because it is. So yes, we're telling you stories about complicated situations that we know about, and there are plenty of situations that we don't know about that are more complicated than the story that survives. We just don't have any additional evidence to show that, especially from stuff like, let's talk about King Tut in Egypt, whatever, and things where we don't have a written record more than paintings on a wall or carvings. So that is to say that as complicated as life is today, my Facebook status, it's complicated. As complicated as it is today, it always was the case. And it's never okay to approach history and thinking that things are as simple as they were. And that's why history is important. That's what I want to say.
That's why it's interesting.
That's why it's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, bonk.
Sorry, the puppy was at the door.
That's fine. I figured it was one of your 45 animals.
Exactly.
That
was it the chicken this time?
Chicken's downstairs.
And like, Lynn, I know, did anything like stick out to you about, like, because your history focus is definitely like the Revolutionary War, like that era, right? And so was there anything that like kind of stuck out to you as far as like this period, like the same, different, or anything that was, I don't know, just
well, actually I've done a lot of I actually started my interest in history was with the Civil War before I went to the Revolution, and now I'm kind of back with Lincoln.
Right, I was gonna say, I'm dumb. You work on the Lincoln Papers, so
yeah, I second that. Pat's dumb.
Yeah. And
well, I think bye.
You did it again.
Bye.
I
sorry guys, I've been gone for a few weeks and my brain is all gushed.
We forgive you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that where was I going?
Abe Lincoln. Civil War. Did it stand out?
Yeah, that people are interested in the Civil War, and they're interested in Lincoln's assassination, but Reconstruction, nobody really cares about, doesn't really seem to, but Reconstruction it's the real end of the Civil War. It's what happened with the Civil War and what went on with the, the political battles. And you had the Freedmen's Bureau, and this was supposed to assist freed people in getting education and finding jobs and all the things that they weren't allowed to do under slavery. And then you have, the Southerners who are now, Americans again, back in the Union, trying to get rid of it, trying to fight it. And so the Civil War doesn't end with the battles, with the actual battlefield, but it's political more than anything. And I think that's what fascinates me, is that I used to say, oh, the Civil War is so interesting. Oh no, Lincoln got shot. Okay, I'm done. Let's go back to the Revolution. But when you keep going, it's absolutely fascinating. And it really is relevant to today, because it shows why we're still fighting this. And we're still trying to achieve this level of, equality in the US that, we just haven't got to. And that's what, Stephen was saying. It's, we're still working on it. So it's important to understand that aspect. And then there's just all these cool little facts, like the first woman ever executed by the federal government was Mary Surratt, who was part of the Lincoln conspiracy, because she helped her son.
Yeah.
Her son brought some friends to her house, and she's like, I'll protect my son. And she got hanged by the government. So,
yeah. All as like bait, right? Just to try and get him to come out.
Right.
At least that's how they posit it.
And Stanton was all about it. He's like, hang them all,
It's interesting that we don't learn from even the fundamentals. While you're saying that, I'm thinking about how, like how much people pay attention to politics leading up to an election. And then after the candidate is elected, we're just like, okay.
My person lost or my person won. Let's wait for 4 years.
We did it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll care again in 3 years. Yep. Or you wait for someone to tell you to care about something.
There's I'm going to sorry to cut you off.
I'm done.
Yeah, go.
Wait, how do I do the fade effect, guys?
As the head of podcast production, it's kind of my thing to know how to do fades in live streams.
I can do this thing.
You just have to switch. Switch.
Oh, scenes. Cameras. Oh, got
it. There it goes. But you, jeez. It reminds me of probably my favorite book series of all time. It's fiction. There's a trilogy, and then there's a second quadrilogy, and the second. It's the Red Rising trilogy, and then the books continue. But the second part of the series happens 10 years after the initial trilogy. And it's all about you leave at the end of the book and it's like, hey, they did it. And then the second set of books is all about the fallout and what actually happens when you try and change after a revolution or some, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's a lot of political, it's like Game of Thrones in space. So highly recommend it. Go check it out. It's awesome. Pierce Brown, Red Rising. But it is so interesting.
Oh my gosh. That's my wife calling me, and it's got the Judge Judy tone. We're gonna.
That's hilarious. That's her calling because apparently your status it's complicated on Facebook.
Right?
So she's like,
nice
what is going on?
When did that happen?
But it is interesting to see actually Reconstruction is arguably the more important part. Thinking about the Revolution and the Civil War, it's like, okay, the two big battles you remember are Yorktown and Gettysburg. But really, those are just fights, right? Those are just people duking it out, obviously killing each other. So not quite as benign as duking it out, but really the change doesn't happen from the battle. The change happens from the people who are left standing after the battle, and arguably not even them because they're just the soldiers. It's the politicians.
Right.
And so this is such a fascinating thing where it's Stanton as a abolitionist is fighting the vice president he's supposed to be working for to try and protect everything he believes him and Lincoln were working for. And, and then Jackson doesn't care because he's also a Southerner and has all of the influence that's coming from the South, and just totally different ideological stances on how to fix the nation. And you end up with a really convoluted, messy, nuanced political soup. That's pretty tasty going down, if I do say so myself. I don't know. I'm kind of on one right now. So anyway, I really did like it, and I thought it was like such a fun episode to hear about that side of things, because normally we just hear they won.
The end.
All right.
Right.
Yes.
But what were they fighting for? They're not just fighting for a W like a football team, so they can get to the playoffs. Like, they're fighting for something. And, for both sides, when they come back together to become a union again, both sides are going to try to make what they fought for come to fruition.
Right. And Jordan, just so you know, the playoffs are kind of like the tournament style after a regular season.
I understand how soccer works. Thank you.
There are playoffs in soccer, so I know you.
Damn it!
There, but those exist there too.
Pickleball. I want to say
one day.
pickleball.
Sure.
One day.
Yeah, professional.
I did have something to say on that, and you've totally derailed it.
Sorry, that was payback for a phone call in the middle of my in front of my Oscar-winning monologue.
Epitaph.
So don't you?
Yeah. Well, this is getting awkward.
The last reaction I have, maybe this will spark some. It was like the importance of land, right? They talk about the Freedmen's Bureau and stuff like that, and how the reparations, the goal was 40 acres and a mule. And it's funny because like the importance of owning property and land is still so important today, right? But it's also so different in that you don't need it to survive and thrive. There's plenty of people who just rent for
basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can still vote despite the fact that I'm a renter, and actually that's pretty cool to think about. Like, I was born in Maryland. I have voted and lived in California. I voted and live in Texas. And, there are aspects of our system that are awesome and like really, like in theory, I get to share my voice.
It's just weird that you voted in all those places on the same day. I mean, that part.
Please do not give anyone any type of
joking.
That is not true. That is not true. I have only voted in the elections that I am in the jurisdiction and allowed to vote in. Do not like. There's going to be some like viral clip. Like I'm like. Anyway, but yeah, like how like that meant so much more then. But it still means a lot now. And they're like, why can't, I guess my avocado toast is the reason I can't afford a house like Jordan, who owns.
You would just eat plain toast like the rest of us.
I am literally in a basement. Okay, now I remember what I was going to say is that I think, my opinion, that the reason that history is told in the way that it does, or why your initial trilogy of the book ends in the way it does, or that Lincoln's story ends in the way it does, or Washington's, or whomever's, is that the people who tell the story are simply that, storytellers. And they state them and tell them and ultimately end them as a story would be told. And man, is it great to just end things with the victory or the conclusion, the natural conclusion. What happens after that only serves to make like your perfect, cake that you baked. And now all of a sudden, but there's a nick in it, or there's something, it just kind of ruins that perfect sphere you created. And that's why I think, which is only hurtful. And by the way, completely wrong, because if you continue it, there's more story.
Always.
Right.
And let me relate it to a modern day as a filmmaker. That's why we tell TV show stories now versus movies, because you can take something that Breaking Bad could have been a movie, but it actually works played out over the course of years because there's so much more to say. And And so maybe history is more like a TV show. Boom.
I want that on a T-shirt.
You know what,
History's
Lynn?
like a
That's a
TV
really
show.
good time for me to mention T-shirts, because look at what I have here. And if people are interested, leave a note in the comment, because I would love to hear if you guys are
It's a
interested.
cool
That's
shirt.
cool.
It says Primary Source Media, and it has the PSM logo. If you can't tell,
Mhm.
There we go. That's a
because
little
of
easier to see.
the brightness.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Jordan's just holding up a gray shirt.
I
That
know.
is,
Yeah.
he said, "What do you guys think? History's gray."
No,
It's not
it
black
is.
and white.
And for those,
That's a really cool shirt. And by the way, that's a athletic sports cut shirt.
yes, it is. I don't know if you knew this, but below the layer of fat, I have 6-pack abs. I mean, deep below that, below like the taco layer and the cheeseburger layer. But also, this shirt is for another one of our podcasts. It says,
Historical birthdays.
Oh,
today.
I see. You gotta hire even
I
higher.
can't see
Nice.
the
And what's
camera, but you
below?
tell
Oh,
me.
you have a
Higher,
cake?
higher. Keep
Yeah,
it going,
cake.
keep it going. Oh, look at that. There's candles in a cake.
That's awesome.
That's actually in a book, coming out of a book. It's a
Oh, yes.
it's
Forgive me.
derivative of
Yes.
our
It's a
logo,
cake book.
and on the back,
It's a cake book.
Primary Source Media. So, guys, I'd be interested to know, audience, if you be interested in merchandise. Why don't you let us know?
Let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've made it this far, please, God.
I
let us
know, right? You
Yeah.
must.
You deserve a shirt if you've made it this far.
You deserve a shirt.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, comment you've made it this far. We might send you a shirt.
Yeah.
Um,
At any rate, it's I could go on and on, but I actually truly believe this. The episode is even more fascinating than us rambling. I know, hard to believe. 1865 is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out wherever you get your podcasts.
Yep.
It was great to talk to Stephen Walters. I know we were all actually on the call listening in silence because we were all such big fans. So check it out. Listen first to Too Complicated for History. 3 more episodes left.
Mm-hmm.
Season 1.
Season
We're
1.
going to go on a small break during January. We'll be back in February.
That's right. Is that an exclusive? Is this the first time we're saying this to the people that we are doing?
This is the first time we're announcing.
Mhm.
We're taking a small break in January, ramping up for season 2. Season 2 will have video. Season 2 will have some new fun stuff. We
big
will be
guests.
launching a Patreon. We will be, some big guests. We'll be launching a Patreon to create more content, potentially more documentary-based content. So just keep an eye out for that. But we need your support to do it, and we're super excited.
And there's
we're
ways
still
you can get involved, though, too.
Yes,
Audience member.
definitely. Yeah. Also, intohistory.com/2c4h. We are still part of that premium listening with all those amazing shows.
You can get on Discord.
Definitely going to be
as well. Give us ideas.
get on our
Yep.
Discord. Yep. Talk to
Mhm.
Lynn and Isaac. They're both there regularly saying hey. And we got a bunch of other shows and fun stuff playing. Check out Let's Be Frank, and we have a new show coming out next week. Actually, that's another RR show. No, it is Revolutions Reconsidered.
Mhm.
It's a collaboration with R2 Studios. Lynn and Jim Ambusky are talking about, they do a little extra deep dive into the content of that show. So check it all out. It'll be out. We'll announce. It's fun. And happy Thanksgiving, you turkeys.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, you turkeys. You heard it here.
Stay complicated.
Stay complicated.